Hi everyone. Today we have George with us from Step Finance, and he's going to help us break down everything into what has happened with Solana following the downfall of FTX and Alameda Research and how the two are connected. And it'll be a very interesting session for those who are interested to figure out the future of Solana and what's happening with the current coins and who has what. So let's get this started. George, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Can you introduce yourself a bit?
Absolutely. Well, pleasure to be here. Yeah, look, my name's George. I'm the co-founder at Step Finance. We're, I guess, what you would say is like one of the original Solana protocols that sort of started getting built out in a hackathon early 2021. And essentially, we're a portfolio dashboard manager. So we're a place that integrates with everywhere on Solana, and we're able to show people their position in any of these different protocols. So we're all about data. That's what we're looking to do. We have data analytics and so on, transaction history. So this is what we're about. So I guess we have a broad overview of what's happening in the Solana ecosystem, given that we have to talk to literally everyone and integrate with literally everyone as well. So yeah, I've seen a lot of stuff, and it's come full circle back to DeFi, and that's really the passion that I have at the moment is building decentralized finance applications for the world.
So being in this space long enough and as long as you have been, why did you decide to build on Solana in the first place? What got you excited about it?
Crypto before, say, 2020 was all about either speculating on a coin or an individual blockchain to make it, or the store of value narrative for Bitcoin itself, right? And that was all there was. So it was kind of like, gee, I hope this number goes up, and that was like, what everyone thought about, and that was really the
Yeah.
only opportunities you had. Then people started talking about building an actual financial system on a blockchain, which I think is much more interesting than just like a stored value narrative or something like that. And people started, building these DeFi products. And essentially, you had lending, you had dexes, you had so you could get rid of the centralized exchanges.
Right.
You had a lot of other different cool things which came about from this. So really, I think DeFi and my interest and fascination with it sort of came out of the ability for people to build an actual financial system rather than just a stored value. And I think that that's still like the key important narrative of a lot of smart contract platforms is it's got to be somewhere that can facilitate an ecosystem of people building these financial applications that are permissionless, and you don't have to ask permission from anyone to do it. You don't have to go and take a picture of yourself with a selfie to try and get a loan.
Sure.
You can just interact with it very easily from your desktop. So really, I think that's kind of the future of where we need to get to. So
Why did you choose Solana over like an Ethereum or a BNB chain or a Matic or whatever?
yeah, so when we started in 2021, there was no alternatives really. So we initially started off as a DCA product. That was our initial hackathon submission. Was it's a place where you can put some money in and then it can buy a coin over some time period.
Right.
Quite a simple sort of contract, but the only place that you could do that really that had liquidity for coins was Ethereum. And Ethereum, it just didn't scale. We looked at MATIC at the time, which was just getting started, but Solana had liquidity and it had wrapped tokens, so it had all of the necessary building blocks required to make a DCA contract. So you could buy your Aave on Solana, you could buy Wi-Fi, you could buy Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever.
Right.
And back then we were like, wow, okay, this is really good. It's cheap. There's no like massive overhead that we need to overcome before we even become profitable as a protocol. Now there's a little bit more options, and AMMs are a little bit more widespread to other chains. But still, I think no one really has nailed the wrapping of tokens everywhere and having liquidity for them everywhere.
Yeah,
It's kind of like
but we will get to the wrap token side of things, and there was wrap Bitcoin on Solana as well. I mean, we kind of saw what happened with the people who were keeping custody of that as well. Can you tell us some insights during that time, what you were going through and what you were learning with like things which kind of have unfolded in a different way now?
Look, I think in that time, that was the massive growth period of everything that was happening on Solana, right? So I think a lot of people came into the ecosystem. And the thing with starting an L1 is you need this critical mass. And you
Yeah.
like there's thousands of blockchains out there, right? And there's not thousands of ecosystems. There's only really like, less than four or something, let's say. Um,
Right.
and so really to kick that off, you needed some core fundamental apps, and at least, at the time, Alameda, they were market making. Serum was one of their core projects, which was a central limit order book DEX, which was also very
Yeah.
important. That's what they were market making on. And then people started building apps and projects on top of that. So you had AMMs that would deploy the liquidity to the central limit order book, and then they would get started. Then you had farms, and then the rest is history, right? So actually, I think that the strategy that they employed was correct. It did kickstart the ecosystem. It did create something from nothing. Now that they're gone, I mean,
Yeah.
things are already taken off. So it's kind of like, they kickstarted it, it's going. And if they leave, it's like, okay, well, we've still got like hundreds, if not thousands of projects building. So it's fine. But yeah, you do need that initial sort of kickstart, which they certainly did. So yeah.
So what's the key takeaway from this for Solana right now? Like, is there still a lot of Solana with FTX and FTX's custody? Like, what's happening with the Solana tokens locked right now? And there was this whole issue with Solana being unlocked, but they've delayed it. Can you give me a bit of brief in that? Like, explain it to me in like a layman fashion, please.
Yeah, I mean, look, so firstly, Solana is fine. Solana is not FTX as well. And FTX has not had any interest in the Solana ecosystem for a year. SBF's not tweeted about it.
Okay.
He's not done anything with any of the teams. Nothing. He hasn't even really listed any other tokens in the last year. So the connection between Solana and FTX is something that people think exists, but it doesn't really. So,
Right.
okay, so there's that. Then the second one is, okay, they have supposedly a lot of SOL, or at least Alameda is meant to have a lot of SOL. Who knows if that's really the case? We've posted the Alameda wallets, which are all on chain, which people can look at. I think there's about 2 or 3 key wallets. There used to be about 350 million in their key wallet. Last I checked, there was like 80 million or something like that. So a lot of those tokens have either moved or gone somewhere else, probably to the FTX hot wallets and stuff like that. Those hot wallets do contain quite a lot of SOL. I don't have the exact numbers, but people are throwing around like, hundreds of millions of worth of SOL or something like that.
Right.
All of that, like even if it does exist, which I'm not really thinking that it does, but even if it does, that's subject to all of the other coins which FTX now hold as part of their treasury as well, or the hot wallets, the coins which are locked there, which is significant for every chain, all over the ecosystem. So, I mean, the connection there and the SOL which they purportedly have is meant to be locked up in validator staking. If you're locking SOL in a validator, it does take at least 2 days to unwind that SOL. So it can't be insta dumped on the market. That's kind of what people are fearful of. But once that SOL is actually unlocked, then it becomes liquid. So I mean, perhaps the case is, let's say they do have some. If the liquidator comes into FTX like they are now, they kind of want all assets to be in some sort of liquid form. So even if they just
Yeah.
unlock from the validator, doesn't mean it's going to be insta dumped tomorrow.
I think I still want to understand like FTX kind of backed Solana, like BNB chain was backed by Binance in a way, right? Like it was more like you can see it like, hey, like we support this ecosystem, any project building on it, whether it was Star Atlas or so many of them, right? Like FTX and Mina were completely like trying to push that at that point of time. What's happening with those projects and are they jumping ship? Are they still building there? Because many of their tokens were launched on FTX, and I don't think they're on many other exchanges as well. Their entire ecosystems, their NFTs, etc., are built on Solana as well. So, like, are you in touch with any of these guys, and what are you listening? Like, what's the buzz with that?
Yeah. So I've spoken to a lot of other founders from the ecosystem. Look, unfortunately, some people got hit with FTX like everyone else.
Yeah,
There's some people which had payroll or things like that, which is essentially now lost. So I do think that there's probably some reductions in runway across the ecosystem, probably just like a lot of places, really. I would say the original batch of 2021, they're listed in Kraken and other sort of tier 2, tier 3 exchanges and stuff like that. But really, I think a lot of people are just focusing on the DEX. As far as we're concerned, like,
yeah.
there's plenty of other venues to look at. And B, we'd probably just tell people that don't keep your money on a centralized exchange anyway, just trade on a DEX.
I was asking more about jumping ship, was more like jumping chains. Like, are they figuring out ways that they can go? Like, of all the people you've spoken to, like, is everybody on board still sticking with Solana, or are they? Some of them are contemplating, or some of them are more convinced that they want to move.
Nobody I have spoken to has mentioned anything about jumping chains because it doesn't
Right,
make sense because a lot of what they're doing can't be done on other chains. So if you're trying to build a game that is really fast and needs high throughput transactions, in the case of Axie, they had to build their own chain to really
right.
make their game work, and that sucks.
Ronin, right.
Yeah, Ronin, right? So you don't want to have to go and build a chain if you're building a game. They just want a chain that just works, right? So
Right.
I think for a lot of people, they're already in the Solana ecosystem. They have no interest to start from zero again. Also, to try and start from another chain right now is literally the worst time in the world to do it. Like
Of
depths of a
course.
bear market
Mm.
after a massive collapse. So I haven't encountered that anywhere. But look, a lot of people, they're just trying to do other things with the rest of the ecosystem. So I think that makes sense. So it's like other projects. Maybe they list their coin with each other. Maybe they do some sort of co-branded marketing thing. Maybe they do something else. It's like the rest of the ecosystem doing other things with each other. And
Mm.
I think that makes the most sense because a lot of the users that those projects will share, they're already validated. Like they're already using the wallets, they're already using the chain, they understand how it works.
Yeah.
So it does make sense from that perspective. Yeah.
How does like the next 6 months, 1 year look for Solana? I still want to know, like, there is a lot more pain to come, right? Like there is a lot more issues that will happen. So how does that look like the next 6 months for these companies and these people and these VCs as well? I'm pretty sure you're connected with a lot of them as well. And
There is a lot of VCs that are sort of floating around the ecosystem that have had like 50% of their their AUM wiped out and stuff like that. I think that was the example of Multicoin. That they had a lot of investments there, which now RIP don't exist anymore. So look, this is bad, obviously. But at the end of the day, like this doesn't really impact people building. Another thing, like Solana just came off a massive conference only really 2-3 weeks ago,
right.
which was the yearly Solana conference, and there was about 4,000 builders there. It was all time highs. It was like 2x, 3x the Ethereum conference the week before.
Yeah.
It was standing room only. There was a lot of people that couldn't go there because of visas and blah blah blah. So, like in terms of a lot of these people, a lot of them don't
That
have funding.
that
That I
conference was like a few days, if not a week before the FTX collapse, right? Like I saw the panel in which Kyle Samani was there from Multicoin Capital and Matthew Graham from Sino was there as well. I think FTX Ventures was there as well.
Yep.
That panel was fairly interesting, and everybody seemed fully confident and stuff. And I haven't seen much of their tweets since that has happened. I've been kind of following them a little bit. Like Sino Capital did put out the fact that like work continues as normal, but if you look at their investments, it's like Solana, FTX, Alameda, and like massive amounts would have gone there because like you can only put in more money in projects that are raising more money, and I don't think anybody raised as much as Solana and FTX. So the question I'm asking is more like they would be wanting to invest more or talking to projects that are building now, that are wanting to build in Solana. Newer VCs who haven't invested in Solana will probably be a little shy as of now. Like it's not like any VC at this moment will go gung ho like, hey, 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 like we want to make sure this chain survives, because like the altruism that we've seen is kind of low at the moment, and it'll be kind of low for a while. I really want to know like harsh truths here. Like, is this pain real? Like,
Yeah, well, I don't think the correlation between a chain surviving or doing good and investment, I don't think they're really that connected. So in the case of like, pain or something like that, look, a lot of these VCs, they did their investments in Solana like a year and a half, 2 years ago, something like
right.
that. A lot of them have done nothing in the last 12 months, really. Last 12 months, you've seen a lot of NFT projects, NFT chains, mooning, a lot of Magic Eden stuff. It's the same as OpenSea. They're doing a similar volume. So there's tons of projects that have arrived with zero funding, and they're doing quite well. So I would say that, like, yes, it sucks that people in their businesses lose a lot of money, particularly the VCs. But what's actually started in the ecosystem is that critical mass that you don't really need slash care too much about what these people say or do. So really, like, I don't think they have a huge impact, or like nobody that I've spoken to is going, oh geez, those VCs over there, like, they lost a bunch of money, isn't that bad? No one's sort of had that. Everyone's sort of, A, they've either already raised money, or
Right.
B, like they haven't raised anything, in which case they're trying to
They're
just
just
plod
fine.
along and yeah, and just do things, as they currently do. So yeah, I don't know. But I would say probably less of an impact than people think it is.
That's very interesting. So basically, you're saying that there has been a cleansing of these
Yes.
unnecessary people within the Solana ecosystem, and I can see the spark in your eye right now that, hey man, like now we can rebuild and kind of get better people on board and refresh and restart with like new people. Is that what I'm feeling here? Is that what I'm getting from you?
Yeah, it's the poison leaving the system. So
Jesus.
that's essentially what it is I think that now this big cleansing's come along, it's cleared everything out.
Yeah,
And now the chain just has to stand on its own 2 feet. There is no connotation with, oh, it's a SAM chain. There is no connotation of, oh, there's a bunch of VCs propping it up. It's all gone, zero. So now it's just, oh, Solana is a chain and it has a bunch of stuff on it. Maybe we should look at all of the stuff that's on it and what they're actually doing, which I think as a builder is the absolute
yeah,
best situation to be in. And that's
yeah.
why I'm pretty happy about that situation, all things considered.
So Solana, I tested out some of the things on it. It worked fine, but it's not something I could get into it like I would get into something like ETH. Like I've tested EOS pretty seriously as well, and that was just bad experience. Solana was slightly better, but I kind of like, I think now would be a good time to kind of see what's happening on this ecosystem when you're saying it might rise from these ashes, and I want to hear more about it. So how have things changed for you internally since the last 1.5 1 year, and where do you see things in step finance after a year as well?
Yeah, so I guess putting some of this in context as well for those that aren't maybe too familiar with Solana, like so in the case of the Ethereum land, we have say MetaMask as the key wallet, but something like over 50% of the user base is using one wallet. In Solana, there's like 20. The key wallet's Phantom. They have millions of users. I don't know the exact number. I think it's about 5 6 million. There's another wallet, Coin98, also very big on Solana, big in Southeast Asia. They have like another 5 million. So there is a lot of users. There's a lot of different wallets to get involved. There's hardware wallet integrations as well, just as we'd be familiar with MetaMask, and open source wallets as well. NFT. There's X NFT Backpack is a new one that's come out. So that there is a lot of sort of ways that people can get in. Firstly, secondly, the whole ecosystem it has a lot of things which can't be built on other chains. So, for example, the way that ETH scales is with L2s, right? Now, my problem with L2s is that liquidity is not addressable between all of the different locations on either Ethereum or the L2. So, for example, if I have money in an L2, I can't within one transaction address liquidity that's living on Ethereum. I have to cross
Right,
the bridge. The bridge has timing, blah blah blah. In Solana land, everything is on the L1, so everything is addressable in one layer. So it actually makes composability a lot easier, and we've seen a lot of that. There's been like I think there was a tweet thread a while back of what's the most composable thing on Solana. It's maybe like 3 or 4 levels deep, something like that. So you kind of see that a lot on, say, Curve or in the Ethereum land. But in this case, like you can go and build like perp dexes and that sort of stuff all on the L1 and have all of them addressable to everywhere else on the chain. But unfortunately, on Ethereum, like DYDX and stuff like that, they have to go off to an L2 to go and do that. So I think like people might appreciate everything being in one spot, which is why I think the L1 sort of play here is that people understand L1s, like they understand BSC as well,
yeah,
with Binance pushing them and stuff like that. It's like, hey, this is a chain and it has some stuff on it, and then if you have the coin, then you can do stuff. Okay, great. That's the thing which everyone can understand. But if you go, oh yeah, there's a chain, but it's an L2, and you need the coin, but the L2 you have to cross the bridge first, and then you have to make sure that you have enough on the other side to pay the fees to get there. So you have to go on this chain first, and then you cross it, and then you can get them. It's just it's not as easy to explain to people as an L1. So I think in terms of like user acquisition, like Solana does pretty well on that, and certainly the NFT boom has shown that. I think the next like 6 12 months, something like that, there's obviously going to be a lot of people picking up the pieces. There's going to be some projects which unfortunately fade away. Maybe their treasury was involved somehow,
yeah,
that sort of thing. So that sucks. But I think all of the building blocks are there. Like all of these building blocks, there's lenders, there's perp dexes, there's options, there's NFTs, there's composable yield farms, there's vaults with like Uni V3 style vaults. There's like 3 different projects doing that. So like there is a lot of opportunities there for people to look at, and really like now's the kind of time to do that because everything's massively wrecked right across the ecosystem. So if you want to get in at ground zero and you want to like look at some of these projects and what they're doing, I
yeah,
think there's probably no better time to do it than now. And it's just going to be a rebuilding effort for a lot of people, I think, for the next 6 12 months. But also,
right.
I think a lot of these projects, like the good ones now will emerge and will be very clear that they are good ones because they've been able to weather, this storm as well as, any other storm.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
In these times, like for a user, right, let's focus on for a bit on like people who are getting into crypto or have been here for a while. Like, is it a good time to kind of speculate on something, and what do you think would be interesting trends to sort of look at with all your experience, and beyond that, like is this time to kind of test products and which ones one should test, or just DCA would be your opinion. Very curious to know this for myself as well.
Yeah, so I mean, we mentioned Star Atlas before and gaming in general. I think a lot of these gaming apps, they just want to build games and they just want a chain which works and it's
Yeah.
fast and cheap to integrate. So I think Solana fits the bill there. In the case of the integration of gaming and DeFi, I think that's probably one thing to watch. So in the case of Star Atlas, like it's a game about like spaceships and stuff, right? Like and all of the different things in that game are NFTs. So
Yeah.
kind of imagine it in a way that let's say there's a planet, that planet itself is an NFT. You could short that on a perp deck somewhere on Sol. You and your buddies in the guild could go and raid that planet, bring its value to zero in game, and then close your short on the decks, like in reality. So you could kind of be a real life pirate. So I think stuff like that is really cool, unique game mechanics, which will probably emerge. Maybe it's Star Atlas, maybe it's something else. But I think just the ability to merge these two kind of worlds at the moment, because a lot of the NFT people and the DeFi people are very separate. But now
Oh
there's,
yeah. I think
yeah, like,
even within the NFT side, like I see such a massive division between gaming NFTs and then PFP NFTs and then art NFTs. Like it's
yeah,
a completely different mindset. And like if you have a marketplace with all of them, it's not so smart anymore. Like I think niche marketplaces that kind of focus on each of these demographics separately, because gaming NFT is more about use cases and memories and like rewards and kind of accomplishments. The PFP NFTs are more like, exclusive entry into an elite club sort of a thing. And art
yeah.
NFT is its own realm. So what should people do in these times, right? Like what should they speculate on? Solana? Should they speculate on Star Atlas? Should they just wait for the Star Atlas game? What should a layman in these times do? Or just wait, do nothing, just wait for things to recover?
Yeah, look, I think what we're seeing in the Solana community at the moment is you have the DeFi people, you have the NFT people, very separate, different influencers, different, follower sets and so on. But I think bringing them together is probably the biggest sort of value add, I think, that I could see with the ecosystem in the next, say, 6, 12 months. So that might
Right.
be the case, like with Star Atlas, coming on board with, integrating their NFTs into financial products. It might be people borrowing against their NFTs on lenders. I think there's still a lot of untapped potential there for what people could be looking at in the ecosystem and what the ecosystem could be building. It's kind of like there's a ton of users over here in the NFT world, and they have no idea what's going on with the DeFi world. It's kind of like even if you can drip feed like 10-20% of that user base, it's a lot of
Yeah.
people.
You did explain, like in brief, how DeFi on Solana is different from DeFi on an EVM chain or Ethereum, so to speak. Can you simplify that a little further as well? Like, why do people choose to use Solana over even Cosmos or Polkadot or Cardano for that matter? Like I would love to hear, like, if you have individual kind of understanding between these, it'll make it much more easier for everyone to figure out what's happening.
Yeah, look, I think one thing, the composability between everything on Solana, I think I mentioned before, having everything on the L1, everything's addressable. It's very easy. There's no segmentation between L2s and so on. The wallets are also pretty good, I would say. For the most part, there's hardware wallet support. There's you can revoke approvals and everything that you're probably familiar with in MetaMask sort of world as well. So actually, a lot of everything that's already been done is there on Solana. So like lenders are there, perp dexes are there, option protocols are there. A lot of everything, right? But I think the big difference is, yeah, look, it's speed and composability and low cost fees and like one example is say I remember when 2020 2021 Ethereum fees huge. Oh, I want to unwind an Aave position, can't do it. Like I remember paying once like $3,800 to unwind a position, which is crazy. And that was when things were like blowing up and stuff like that. So luckily, Solana has some benefits there. And I think really it's a lot of retail people that want to put in $200 to something.
Right.
I've certainly got people involved in Ethereum in the past, and it's been like, hey, I've only got $200. Can I stake something or can I do it? But then it's like, okay, you're going to pay $50 in fees to get anything done. So I think, look, Solana does pretty well in that respect. It doesn't have the liquidity that ETH does. And I think that's one thing which is the big differentiator.
Yeah.
And right now, with everything being wrecked, there is like a gaping hole of TVL and liquidity.
Yeah.
So yeah, that needs to improve. But the fundamental like building blocks of everything, it's all there.
I mean, one of the key things, I mean, you kind of nailed it on the head. One of the key things that worked in Solana's favor is that any chain which is backed by like a centralized exchange per se, or a lot of existing dexes with fresh liquidity in it will survive, right? So ETH is definitely like the master of liquidity. MATIC, with every integration that they've done, everything from USDT, USDC, Sandbox, Decentraland, every other thing out there, like 50,000 different projects built on it. But then you have Binance Chain, which may not be as aggressive with their own internal partnerships and projects building, but they have massive amounts of liquidity because of the Binance name connected with it. On top of that, you have other chains which are coming up, like I think OKEX is trying to push liquidity with their sort of chain as well, and crypto.com with the Kronos chain has that as well. So for the longest time, it was, at least people believed, it was Solana was kind of powered in liquidity by FTX and Alameda. But in terms of like this debacle happening, has the liquidity gone down on chain? Like, can you share some on-chain metrics and data that you observed?
Yeah, so I think the biggest lender in Solana, SolLend, I think their TVL has gone down about 200, 300 million, which is pretty significant for them. Like, I think it's probably in the range of like 30, 40% of their TVL. So there's that. And there's also one of the original sort of basis for a lot of people building on Solana was Serum as well. Serum is the central limit order book DEX. Essentially, it's like an exchange on a blockchain.
Right.
And that was it still is a very unique feature of Solana, where you have a real order book exchange like in DeFi, which like I remember back when DeFi started on Ethereum, like 2017, 2018, there was it Ether Delta like tried to
Yeah.
do that. That was the most painful experience in the world trying to get that thing to work. And it was because of scalability, right? And like maybe you could do similar kind of stuff on L2s now.
Yeah.
But certainly Solana Serum has been that. So Serum now is like it was a FTX kind of project. It's now been forked by the community, and the fork is now being rebranded as Open Book. So it's being restarted, but a lot of that Serum liquidity is now gone as well. So now it's kind of up to market makers. There's protocols that are building vaults to put money onto Serum. So it's much easier for people to like market make on there. Radium puts their funds onto the central limit order book because that's how their AMM works. Essentially, it's not everything done on a curve. Like they actually put real orders on an order book.
Yeah.
So that kind of needs to get restarted. A lot of Serum stuff. So there is like at least a couple 100 million that is left in the last few weeks, but all the building blocks are still there.
I think I want to segue a bit towards like step finance, and as well as sort of the NFT side of things on Solana, which I think you've been doing a lot of research on, studying quite seriously for a while. So what is step finance, and what have you been building on Solana so far?
Yeah, so for those familiar with the Ethereum land, you might be familiar with things like Zappa, Zerion, DBank. Step is like that, but for Solana, and we have a lot more other stuff going on as well. So we're a portfolio manager and aggregator. It means that we're like a central dashboard that brings all of the different integrations with every project everywhere, into one spot. So if you have money in 50 different pools or whatever, you're not going to have 50 different tabs open. You just have one. It's Step. It all works. It tells you where your money's at. So that's the basis of what Step got built out. Then we moved a little bit more into the data side of things. So transaction history. There's lots of people that want APIs for that for various reasons, whether it's like some tax accounting company or whether it's a wallet, let's say. So
Right.
Step has really good past transaction data. We have an NFT gallery as well, and essentially, what our strong suit has been the DeFi world. That's how we grew up with a lot of stuff in Solana. But we had a massive blind spot of NFT world, and then NFTs for the last 12 months have just been like booming, and I haven't had time to like get my head around what on earth's happening there. So what we
Right.
did is we acquired Solana Floor, which is the largest data NFT analytics platform on Solana. So they have a lot of stats, historical data for all these NFT projects. So that's filling the gap for us on the NFT side, and we onboarded the team, a really great team that came across. So essentially, yeah, that's sort of been our focus has been integrating those two things, and then the future for Step is definitely along the data analysis side. So you can kind of think of it something like a Nansen, but a little bit more detailed, where Nansen will tell you about wallets and what they're doing, but they won't tell you that a particular lender has had an APY of 6 to 8% for the last 6 months, or they won't tell you like how many people are borrowing this particular LP as opposed to another. So it's really like project contract specific analytics is what we're going for. So we have a new product launching very soon for that. So yeah, our focus is really on data on the ecosystem and exposing that a little bit more.
I'm keen to know though, how did you manage to save yourself from getting any exposure with FTX or Alameda? Like you're an OG in the space, like you pretty much know everyone and sort of like building a project. Like if like a partner is potentially hot and is kind of pushing an ecosystem, they would be your first kind of people to connect with. How did that happen, and was it like by choice?
Yeah, well, I think it comes down to getting wrecked many times in the past. It's just practice at this point. But so Alameda invested in our original round. And so essentially they gave us money initially, along with a bunch of other VCs to launch. Great. We did that. We launched and, we've been building on, everything since then. Alameda didn't really speak to us ever since. They were very much like a hands-off investor, and that's what they were renowned for in the community, was that, like, yes, they provide money, but then they don't, really do anything with any of the projects afterwards, which is
Right.
like that's common across a lot of projects, I can say. So, I mean, in on the one hand, that's kind of good in that they're not getting up in your business every 2 seconds, but on the other hand, like they're not an active role investor or anything like that. So that's how we got to be connected with them essentially, was through that initial round. And then yeah, for us going forward, we didn't have we did have some funds on FTX. We had I think some step on there, but it wasn't too much. So I think we're sort of low digits there.
Your token was listed on FTX,
Correct.
and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
people who were affected by it, they're affected by it. Like, are you
Correct.
figuring out some way to help them out?
Well, it's like, yes, Step was listed on FTX, right? And that was the connection. Unfortunately, we have no say over what FTX does. So a lot of our, people that hold the token, unfortunately, are just in the same basket as everyone else right now, trying to get their money out. So I don't think we can shed too much light on there. It's like 26% of supply or some fairly decent number, which kind of sucks. But for us, most of our treasury is all in USDT and USDC. So for us, we just sort of keep that, and that was always there. So we're happy to weather the storm, with that, and we're happy to extend the runway out for a long time yet. So yeah.
Would you recommend people use more DeFi tools going further, and kind of like would you still be pursuing getting your token on centralized exchanges? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, I think the learning from all of this is why DeFi exists, right? Like you can see the proof of reserves, it's all there on chain, it's baked into everything that we use. You can trade like token versus USD on DeFi, so that kind of negates all of the reasons people use centralized exchanges. I mean, centralized exchanges are convenient though, right? And that's why people use them. And trying to teach people about how to use a wallet and seed phrases and hardware wallets and self custody, it's quite hard. So look, I can see that there are sort of stumbling blocks there. However, I would say that look, the NFT people in the last year, they went fully Web3 and they're
Yeah.
all self custody. They never interacted with an exchange. So the
No.
argument that, oh, it's too hard, or they're like the UX is too bad or something like that, it's like, no, it's not. All of these NFT people, self custody, day one, they're
Right.
interacting with on marketplace contracts. So look, I think it is possible to get out there. That's probably one of the learnings for us. Not pursuing any centralized exchange listings, never have either. A lot of centralized exchanges just went and listed us for whatever reason. Our focus is all on sort of the chain itself and on-chain liquidity and providing like on-chain mechanisms for people to do stuff. So that's kind of what we see as our core market. Yeah, don't really care about exchanges, to be honest.
Being like a data aggregator, like can you share any interesting other insights that you haven't so far from the Solana ecosystem? Like anything interesting you're saying? Is there a drop in the NFT side of things? Is there an increase in it, or there is no change in it? Like a lot of people who listed their NFTs, when Solana was whatever $30, is now around $10 now, which is like a pretty massive hit. So their revenues would have gone down. Maybe not so much affecting short-term PFP projects, but sort of like long-term artists and creators who are actually building a community for themselves. Like, besides the sentiment, what's the chain telling us, like in terms of data?
Yeah, so there was a couple of things. We have a Step Data Insights Twitter where we put out some newsletters on some of the on-chain stuff. So in the case of, say, OpenSea versus Magic Eden, OpenSea on most days has more volume than Magic Eden. However, the number of transactions which individual users do, I think the average on OpenSea is about like 1.7 transactions per 30-day period, I think it was. And for Magic Eden, it's like 7.6. So the users are much more engaged on the Solana blockchain, and maybe that's because like you can actually sell a $2 NFT on Magic Eden if you want,
Yeah.
but it's not really cost viable to be doing that on Ethereum. I mean, OpenSea's on other chains as well, but that was an interesting stat that a lot more people are clicking more buttons and doing more stuff.
Right.
I guess maybe one of the other insights might be sort of what's happening with a lot of the Alameda wallets as well. We also posted a recent sort of post about what's happening with those wallets, where's the coins at. A lot of those coins are locked up in the FTX hot wallet. In the case of Step, like that's like 26% of supply. Probably a lot of that is Alameda sort of coins as well. But yeah, their wallets they're a third of what they were a month ago. They're still there on chain, a lot of the ones which they use to interact with a bunch of different protocols. And interestingly, they haven't withdrawn a lot of that liquidity. So there's some protocols where there's, say, $20 million lying around in the old serum, which has now been forked and doesn't exist anymore. And they haven't moved that yet. So I don't know why that is. Maybe whoever has access to those wallets doesn't anymore or something like that. But yeah, there's a few sort of interesting things to watch on chain, I think.
I think the point about having lower transactions could also have something to do with the fact that the fees is high, and the second one is honoring of royalties as well. I think that's a pretty big issue. Like, I think once that kind of changed, I felt like a lot of liquidity moved in because you could do market making, wash trading, like further wash trading of NFTs on, because you don't have to give royalties to like the creators of that. So maybe that was one of the reasons as well. But how do you see this happening? Like, we already have Ethereum kind of move to proof of stake, and then once it does get closer to enabling sharding and stuff, and the fees element is not there, do you think it would still be the same thing for Solana?
Yeah, well, I guess the thing now with Solana with the NFTs is that there's way more competition. It used to be that Magic Eden had like 98, 99% market share. They had that for pretty much most of the last year and a half, which is insane, right? But now I think there's something like 5 or 6 different marketplaces at least, and
Yeah,
some are aggregators between all of the different marketplaces, kind of like 1inch is for a lot of liquidity on Ethereum across Uniswap and everywhere else.
yeah,
So maybe people gravitate to those ones. And yeah, the royalties is one thing. That's been a whole big debate. I don't really have a position on that. All I think is like the market will find the optimal solution, whatever that is. And yeah, whether it's zero fees or whether it's creator fees, there will be some, and there is like some marketplaces that tailor to, oh, we have fees, and then some that say, oh, we don't have fees. Maybe people will switch to the aggregators. Maybe that will be sort of one way that people look at it. Yeah, for us, we have a new dashboard going live on Solana Floor pretty soon, where you can
right.
see the drop of royalties which a project could have earned. So I think something like that will be interesting for people, because people like, you need to quantify this as well.
Yeah.
People say, oh, we're losing out on royalties, but like how much? Is it 10 sol? That's not going to build a project long term.
On Solana, is this possible on a smart contract level to embed royalties?
Well, it was, and so everyone was using the Metaplex standard, which is the standard for a lot of NFTs on Solana since the last year and a half or so, and that had embedded royalties
Yeah.
at the NFT contract level. So when you minted the NFT, it was according to this standard, the Metaplex standard, and then that had the embedding. However, and likely what is also happening with Ethereum as well, is people can wrap those NFTs in another contract and then not have royalties there. So it's like, cool, I can make a wrapped version of that NFT. I can then list it on my marketplace, which is another contract as well.
Yeah.
And then I can just, remove the trading of fees whenever someone trades that. So it's like, yeah, sure, the actual like NFT token itself maybe has royalties embedded, but if you wrap it, you can't really get it. And I don't think there's a solution to that, right? Like people will always be able to do that.
Yeah, anyways, I think this is a completely different topic for discussion and a pretty long one. But I think this was a very interesting discussion between us, and I kind of really learned quite a bit about Solana today, kind of learned about what you're building. These are interesting times for everyone. I think bear markets are such amazing times to kind of put your head down and figure out what needs to be done to kind of do things better next time around. Because when good things happen, we do well, and when problems happen, we keep suffering. Any last words of advice that you'd like to add, or like talk about something that excites you the most, and then we can wrap it up.
Yeah, look, I've been around a long time in crypto. I bought my first Bitcoin at $1.70. I've seen a lot of bear markets. I saw MTGOX go to $31 and then back to a dollar. I've seen that blow up. I've seen all sorts of different things blow up. So I've made money. I've lost money multiple times. So look, these markets come and go, and the storm or the tsunami will blow over. So I think people need to essentially private money that is permissionless for the world is a valuable and useful thing, and it will continue to be a valuable and useful thing. So, if you look at the long term picture and take a step back, having private money that anyone can transact anywhere is fundamentally good. So crypto will come back. People will start building. Now's the great time to be sort of doing some research, investigating when things quiet down. I'm super excited about sort of what we're doing, and essentially just building a financial ecosystem. I think is the cool thing. So whether that's Solana or whether that's elsewhere, don't know. But I think having the ability to get loans, be able to use things as collateral, and be able to transact without centralized exchanges, I think are fundamentally useful things as well. So go and check it out. Dexes, all this sort of stuff on Sol. We're happy to help you out at Step. We've got some guides. So yeah, but no, it's been a pleasure to be on Altcoin Buzz today.
Awesome. Appreciate all the information, George, spending time with us, giving us all the insights and feedback on a pretty relevant topic. What do you guys think, right? Like, do you think Solana will bounce back? And have you used it? What are your favorite tools that you've tested on Solana? Would love to hear some feedback. Leave it down in the comments below. See you for the next one.